Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Griffin, and I hope you're having a great day. I want to establish a few things with this intro, one being that there is truly no, best Apex settings, but only what works best for you. And for that reason, I want to approach this video a bit differently, because you guys know I love helping y'all out, and I'd much rather you gain hours of true knowledge in 15 minutes, rather than just spitting mindless information and settings at you. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through every setting in Apex, including my settings, controller layouts, FPS caps, video settings, and more. So hopefully it's going to be one of the most in-depth settings guides, and for that reason, I would really appreciate if maybe you guys could think about subscribing, because I spent a lot of time on this video, and I'd love to be able to help you guys out again. Alright, so for the first setting, it's going to be interact prompt style, and I have this on compact. Now, it's set to default right now because I'm going to show you guys, but you can see when it's on default, there's this big box here that is going to be taking up a ton of the screen, and if I'm trying to shoot at this guy in front of me, right, I can't see him if there's an item on the ground, and that is horrible. So you want to have this on compact. For button hints, you want to have these off. This just shows you your buttons at the bottom of the screen, and it's not really important. I think a very important tip for having really good settings in Apex is trying to minimize everything, right? Trying to have the most minimalistic things on your screen, because you don't want to have a lot of visual clutter in this game, because the game moves pretty fast. So that's why I have the button hints turned off. For crosshair damage feedback, I have this on X. This is just what I like. These two settings are personal preference for sure. For damage numbers, I have these on stacking. I'd recommend these two, to be honest. Stacking is really important. Basically, let me grab a gun here. When I'm shooting a guy on stacking, you can see that I know that I just shot that guy for 213 damage, right? I just shot that guy for 213. If I go to, floating, for instance, the numbers just appear and they float up, right? And I absolutely can't tell how much I just hit this guy for. I mean, what did I just hit him for, right? I mean, I can see how much I cracked him for, but I don't know how much I hit him for. And, you want to give calls to your teammates if possible. And so that's important, right? Now, for ping opacity, once again, I was talking about minimizing your settings for sure. And this is another thing. You want to have this on faded, right? You can see that you can see through the ping thing, but then on default, it's a little bit more, it's not see-through, it's not faded. For obituaries, this is your kill feed, and the kill feed's super important in Apex, more than other games, because when you're going to be third-partying someone, you want to be able to know how many knocks they got, because if someone knocks someone in the kill feed, it's going to show up, right? And you can tell who got knocked, if it's a Gibraltar or whatever, you're going to be able to see that, so it's important to have obituaries turned on. For mini-map rotation, I have this off. Weapon auto cycle on empty. This basically just means that whenever you empty out a clip, if you run out of ammo, it's going to automatically switch to your other gun. That's just preference, but I prefer off. Auto sprint is going to be on. I like to bunny hop around everywhere, and if I have it on, it's really easy to do that. Moving on to double tap sprint. This is in Minecraft. There's no reason. I don't think I've ever actually had this setting on. Okay, that is so bad. Yeah, that is so bad. No, definitely have that turned off. Oh my god, that is awful. This is mainly going to be for my Valkyrie mains. It's basically going to mean that it's going to activate your jetpacks whenever you click A. So if you double click, it's going to activate the jetpacks, right? You see that I'm just clicking it once as it activates the jetpacks. But if we have this on toggle, it's just gonna go up. I'm not even touching it. It's so dumb. It's so bad. I don't know why this is even in the game. It should just be automatically turned off. So, incoming damage feedback. Have this on 3D. You could have it on 2D, but I don't know. Have it on 3D. I have it on 3D. You should have it on 3D. Taking damage, close the deathbox craft menu. The most important setting in the game. Literally the most important setting in the game. In Apex, we need to get armor swaps. Armor swaps are so important. It's such a big mechanic of the game, right? And when we're going to be getting armor swaps, we're going to be getting armor swaps in fights. And so people are going to be shooting at us. And if people are shooting at us, we want to still be able to get the armor swap. And so, taking damage close to the death box or crafting menu is going to make it so when you're in a death box, if you get shot at, it's going to keep you in the death box. It's not going to kick you out if you have it off. For hop-up, pop-up, this doesn't matter. Just have this off. For streamer mode, have this off. Basically, all this does, it just makes it so you won't be able to see people's names. And I guess it could be kind of good if you're worried about who's killing you, but it's not that important. I don't know, just keep that off, I guess. For anonymous mode, I have this disabled. For usage sharing, I have this disabled. For performance display, I don't like visual clutter, so I have this off. All this does is just shows your FPS and your ping and your packet loss at the top. I guess if you have a lot of ping, it might be important, but I mainly just have this off, and I think it looks so much better. For club invites, I have this enabled. Join my club. I don't have one. Maybe invite me to your club and I'll join. Invite me, please. For communication filter, I have everybody. And then reticle. This is another important setting. This is another like really good setting. I'd recommend this a lot. For your reticle, green. Oh my god, such a good reticle. Green or pinkish purple, but green's the best. And the reason for that is because green is the easiest color to see in your eyes, and your reticle is a very important thing that you need to be looking at when you're playing the game. And if you go through all these maps, you can see that it stands out really well. If I go to like a more like blue color, like it's just not as good. I don't know. I would recommend green. There's a reason why almost every pro Valorant player uses a green reticle, a small green reticle, because it is the best reticle. And so that's why I use green. And for laser sight, I just have it on green as well, because it's not that important. Just have it on the color you have your reticle, I guess. And then for color by mode, this is actually kind of an important setting. I feel like it's overlooked a lot, but it's actually pretty important. If I grab a digi-threat here, you're gonna see that the digi-threat is gonna highlight the enemies in red. But that's kind of hard to see, especially on like World's Edge and stuff. It's kind of hard to see red. And so that is why I use the color by mode Protanopia. Makes it blue. Makes the enemies blue. So if you've ever seen that in a video, that is how you do it. That's how you make the enemies in your digi-threat blue. And you'll also be able to see them blue in Bloodhound ult as well. It works the same way. So important, keep your colorblind mode on whatever's preference, but Deutanopia and Protanopia will change that digi-threat to blue. Alright, where were we? Yeah, keep all this off. None of this really matters, to be honest. Moving on to mouse and keyboard. Actually, not moving on to mouse and keyboard. This is controller. This is the #1 controller settings video. We don't need the M and K stuff. Moving on to controller. Button layout. Button layout's like super important. I can go pretty in depth in this actually. But I got the hand cam here. I normally don't show the hand cam. And okay, I know like a lot of people in the comments are gonna be like getting on me for playing claw. I know that's like a big turnoff to people or something. Let me teach you what claw is if you don't know. So basically you can see like, this is like how someone would normally hold a controller. And I think my aim is actually like better without claw. But the issue with not playing claw is that you can see that when I'm shooting, right, I obviously need to have my aiming, my right analog stick. But when I want to reload, I have to take my thumb off the analog stick to click my reload button. And the issue with that is that now I can't look anywhere when I'm reloading. And so that's why I use claw, because I can use my pointer finger to click X or Y or A and B, and crouch, jump, X and Y, right? Without ever removing my thumb from the stick. And so that's why it's super important to either have paddles, which I have on the back of my controller. I use one paddle on the back left bottom, and I use this as a jump button. The reason I do that is because, I don't know, I've just gotten used to it, and when I tried running 4 paddles, I kind of just like fat fingered them a lot, so that's mainly why. But moving on to the other button layouts, we have button jumper and button puncher and ninja and customize. Those are the only ones you would ever want to mess with. If you don't like playing claw and you don't have paddles, I would recommend using bumper jumper, button puncher, to be honest. But for me personally, I suck at them and I won't be using them. Customize, also the same thing. If there's a specific setting that you want to change, then that is where you would do it. Moving on to stick layout, I would just have these default. Interact reload button. I use tap to use and reload, but if you want to be able to reload behind knockdown shields, then use tap to use and hold to reload. Basically what this allows you to do is to pick stuff up with X and then hold reload to reload. And the other one is hold to use and tap to reload. This basically means that to pick items up, you have to hold X, and then to reload, you just have to click X. But I've never been able to get used to any of the other ones except for tap to use and reload. Crouch button, toggle. Kind of another important setting. I personally, like I said, love to bunny hop everywhere and like do weird controller movement things like super glides and stuff. So I prefer toggle. It's just a little bit easier, and I like to be able to not have to always have my finger on B. It's annoying. But basically what crouch does, it makes it so to be able to slide, you have to hold B. If I tap it, it like doesn't really slide properly. You have to hold B. And that doesn't really work well with claw, right? Because I have to like move my thumb like this to be able to slide. And so that's why crouch button on toggle is better, because I can just click B and then be able to click A whenever I want. I could be in a slide and then hold. I just feel like I have a little bit more control over my slides, and that's why I use toggle. So for aim button, hold. And then for survival slot button, I have this off only because I use heirlooms a lot of time, and I don't think I'm not too competitive enough that I always need to be able to have my survival slot like ready by just like using my inspect button. But that's basically what it does. Moving on to trigger dead zones, have these on none. Having these on max is going to make it so you're going to have to fully pull down on the stick to shoot the gun, whereas you can see like I'm tapping the stick right now, or tapping the trigger, and nothing's happening. I have to fully press down. We don't want that. That's like super bad. We want to have it on none, so even the slightest touch of the stick is going to pull the trigger. At the end of the day, most settings in Apex are preference, so if that's something you don't like, then I guess, by all means use like default or moderate or whatever. For menu cursor speed, you want to have this as high as possible, but you want to be able to control it as well as possible. Alrighty, so moving on to the part of the video that I think most of you guys are here for, the settings. The setting that I mainly use the most is 4:4, and whenever someone is asking me for settings and they've played COD or they played any other FPS, I recommend 4:4. It's probably the best setting in the game. There's a reason why like 90% of the pro controller players use 4:4 or 4:3 classic with no dead zone. It's the best. You really don't want to have pro-optic settings on. It honestly decreases your aim assist a little bit. I know that's kind of weird to say, but it does. 4:3, 4:4, best settings in the game by far. The other setting that I would recommend is like a 4:3 linear with a small dead zone. The reason I have a small dead zone is because on a 4:3 linear, you have some stick drift. You see I'm not actually touching my stick, but it's moving. This is because of how the joysticks work, and there is like a center point, and whenever it releases past that center point threshold, it does, add stick drift. So by adding a look dead zone of small, we don't really have stick drift anymore, and we get to utilize the full effects of having a linear response curve without the side effects, which is normally a really bad stick drift. This setting is awesome. I think Imperial Hal uses it. I use it, but my favorite setting is going to be by far 4:4 classic with no dead zone. Now, if that's not something you like and you like a faster sensitivity, then 5:4 would work, and even 6:4. I used to run 6:4 sensitivity, but 4:4, that's the best setting in the game. You can quote me on that. Is the best setting in the game. For movement dead zone, small. For inverted look, off, and God forbid, do not play on vibration, please. It literally hurts your hands like more than claw. It's like actually horrible for you, and it throws off your aim. It's horrible. Moving on to the advanced look controls. The dead zone is going to be on 5%. Now, I have a YouTube video that explains every setting, so if there is like ALC settings that you want to create on your own and understand truly how ALCs work, then I will leave a link to that in a card and the pinned comment, or maybe in the description or something like that. The video will be somewhere in this video, and I would recommend checking it out because it is pretty darn good, and it goes kind of in detail with every setting and how it works. But for dead zone, one little quick tip about it is you want to have it as low as possible without having stick drift. For this specific sensitivity, 5 is the best, but 3 also works. So there's a little bit stick drift, but if you can deal with that, then have it on 3. The lowest you can go is the best. For auto threshold on 1, response curve. Response curve is basically like 0 is linear. You can see it's like a linear graph. So, but I like 4 for pro-optic settings. We're gonna go into this. This is kind of like what makes these settings stand out a little bit, because these pro-optic settings are gonna keep your ADS like relatively the same sensitivity. So for 1x is gonna be on 1, 2x is gonna be 1, 3x is 1.1, 4x is 1.2, 6x is 1.7. For the 8, it's gonna be 1.7, and for the 10, it's gonna be 1.7. All right, so those are the pro-optic settings done. For yaw speed, it's going to be 350. This is going to be your left and right view. For pitch speed, it's going to be up and down, and that's going to be 300. And then all 0 on these guys, I would leave those alone for sure. For ADS yaw speed, I have this at 130. ADS pitch speed is going to be 94 or 95. I put 94 because it's kind of hard to get 95 for some reason. And then ADS, tuning extra yaw, and all the rest of them are going to be on 0. And then for target compensation, you want to have this on, bro. There's no reason to not have aim assist on. Like, we're controller players out here, man. Like, we need the aim assist. But then for melee target compensation, I have this on. All right, so moving on to video settings. This is like getting near the end. For console, the final part of the video is this little box here, and it's gonna be display mode, full screen, obviously, aspect ratio. I actually play on stretch res, which is 1680 by 1050, but native works just as well. For brightness, Apex is like a super dark game for some reason, and so it's really important that we have a high brightness because you want to be able to see people. It's going to be really hard to see people sometimes, and so having a high brightness is like peak. It's like really good. So, but obviously that's going to be different between each PC, right? Like I've been on some PCs that like need a 50% brightness and some PCs that run like, you needed like an 80% brightness. And also depends on like your digital vibrance in your NVIDIA control panel if you have access to that. Nonetheless, 72% for me. For field of view, if you're going to be playing on a classic sensitivity, I would recommend 108 FOV or 110 FOV. If you're on linear, I'd recommend 104 or 106. The hip fire on linear feels so much better on like a 104 to 106 field of view. Like another important thing is like field of view, like do not keep your field of view at 70. It is the worst thing in the game, right? Because we can't see that much, right? If I'm up close at this guy, right? I can see two targets, relatively like two targets, right? Now, if I go to 1010, we can see so much more. We can literally see the two targets in the back. We can see all three of them. We have like 5 targets right there. So that's going to be really helpful for you. Definitely turn your FOV up if you haven't already. For FOV ability scaling, we want to have this on disabled. This basically means that when you're using a movement ability like Octane or something, it scales your field of view to like simulate the speed, but it sucks, trust me. Keep it on default. And then sprint view shake, we want to have this on minimal. All right, so moving into like the PC specific settings, I guess. For VSync, it's going to be disabled. NVIDIA Reflex, enable plus boost. Adaptive resolution FPS target on 0, anti-aliasing none, and then all the rest of the settings are going to be as low as possible. Now I'm going to run my PC specs over the screen, and I have a pretty nice computer. I mean, it runs like 240 frames if I were to set it to that. But in FPS games, we want to have the highest FPS possible, and so we want to have everything low. All right, and then lastly, moving on to audio, I have my audio pretty low because I'm just recording and I want you guys to be able to hear me, but the advanced audio settings are kind of important, right? For sound effects volume, keep it at as high as you want, but dialogue volume, keep it below 15%. You want to be able to hear characters in the game because sometimes they can give you pretty nice call-outs on if there's a new third party coming or something like that, but you don't want it too high that it's going to be blocking game audio. And then for music volume and lobby music volume, just keep these on 0. You want to be able to hear what's going on around you, and music is just, it's loud. It's dumb. Well, I think that's pretty much gonna wrap up the video. This is a little bit longer than I expected, but I think I truly gave you guys some pretty good information. So if I was able to help you guys out with anything in this video, then liking it would literally mean the world to me because it pushes the video out to more people, and I would love to be able to help a wider audience. But nonetheless, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.